Don't look now, but Quentin Johnston is making a strong push for the wide receiver 2 role after 2 touchdowns at Monday's practice, and all of a sudden it feels like he could have another leap going into year 3.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons together, but this is our 8th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, on Monday's practice, Quentin Johnston went off, catching a couple of very awesome, deep touchdowns, and this is a trend. This is 3 so far in camp. He seems to be looking to take another step in year 3, and we got some great news. Some news we were awaiting, and that is Philip Rivers retiring as a Charger, as he always should. We have to honor the great Philip Rivers, and we are about to put the pads on. The real football's about to start, so we got to talk about some of the players we are excited to see strap it up and get out there and play some football.
Yeah, and see guys start to hit, but there are certain positions that definitely you have to see the pads on before you can get a true read on them. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. David, Quentin Johnston, a name that every Chargers fan knows, a name that you could ask 10 Chargers fans about, and you could get 10 different opinions on what they think of Quentin Johnston. But the book about him so far in his 2 seasons in the league is obviously the first thing that comes to your mind is drops. If you're a first-round pick, that's not the first thing you want your name attributed to, and he's going to be fighting that until he can prove otherwise in big games. Now, he has potentially been, outside of Ladd McConkey in the non-Ladd McConkey category, he's been the best receiver so far in training camp, and he's made the most big plays, including, according to Daniel Popper, 2 25-plus yard touchdowns at Monday's practice. And David, it's one thing to catch touchdown passes, right? One of them, he's even pretty open. But I think the thing about the 3 touchdown passes that he's caught so far, one being on Friday's practice, he had the one going over the middle, jumping catch, full extension, caught it with his hands. But even the 2 that he had on Monday, it's how he's catching the ball, right? Over the shoulder balls, in stride, deep balls, tracking the football, all of those things that we thought, hey, maybe there is a cap to what he can do there. He's showing that he's improved, at least right now, in those areas of his game. And man, that is really, really good to see.
It is fantastic, because for Quentin Johnston, the only way he's going to be able to change the narrative around him is having more success in those exact situations, those contested catches, those over-the-shoulder passes. He's going to have to be able to come down with those a lot more often and in the big crucial moments, right? That's the thing, the big pain point whenever we're talking about Quentin Johnston is, man, the big drops, and it just seems like they are magnified because of when they happen. Obviously, everybody goes back to the Green Bay Packers drop. I remember it vividly as I was in the stadium at Lambeau Field to watch it. So
yeah.
I remember it, trust me. But right now, this is what you want to see. This is what you should hope to see out of Quentin Johnston, is that progression. And also in Daniel Popper's article, he kind of detailed wide receiver coach Sanjay Lal practicing those over the shoulders constantly with him, trying to program that muscle memory, trying to beat that into him so that when he does this stuff on the practice field, it translates to the game as well.
Which is exactly what you hope to see. And it is kind of like Justin Herbert in a way, where Justin Herbert won't be able to silence his haters until he does it, and he does it in the playoffs and wins playoff games. He can't prove that in the regular season. It's not possible for him. Quentin Johnston, there's no amount of big plays he's going to be able to make at this point of the season where some fans are going to be able to buy in. And to those fans' point, the Chargers weren't fully willing to actually, let Quentin Johnston be the sole wide receiver 2 on this team, right? They went and signed Mike Williams to be X. They went and got Trey Harris in the second round. They went and got a Keandre Lambert-Smith. All we saw them do this offseason was add wide receivers into the
Yeah.
mix to challenge him for that role, which they should have. They couldn't put all their eggs in Quentin Johnston's basket. But the thing is, there was always the chance that he did take another step, and we've acknowledged many times how big of a step he made from year 1 to year 2, and we said if he can make a similar one into year 3, now you're really onto something. But it was those little finer details of his game that you just weren't sure that kind of comfortability would ever get there. This is a great sign towards that. Now, one was a 25-yarder over Nico Reed. The other one was a 58-yard touchdown over Tricus Bridges. The one on Friday's practice was in between several guys, a good throw. Great catch, but he went into camp as wide receiver 2. But after adding Mike Williams, Trey Harris, KLS, we wondered if he'd be able to hold on to it. Right now, it feels like he's solidly holding on to it. And I understand fans' hesitance to fully buy in. I can't fully buy in it right now either. You have to do, the 0 for 5 against the Ravens, the 0 for 5 against the Texans. You can't fully buy in, but to actively root against him is something different. Like this, if Trey Harris had this day, obviously he's a rookie, it's different. But there's no second guessing it, right? Everyone's going ballistic if this is the rookie doing it. This is a great sign that Quentin Johnston's doing this, and all Chargers fans should be hoping that, hey, this is him figuring it out a little bit, and there is another layer to his game.
If these plays don't happen in practice, they pretty much don't happen on the football field in the games, right? This is where it has to happen. This is where you want to string these consistent plays together. Obviously, this is layer 1, right? When you're out there in shorts and they're actually starting to get a little physical, right? There's there's limits to what you can do. Obviously, they're trying to control these guys and keep everybody healthy. So making plays right now, that's the first step. And then the next step is doing it when they put the pads on. And I'm sure you might see his name when we talk about players that we're excited to see when they put the pads on, because the next step is, okay, show me that you can do it when you have defenders draped all over you that are actually trying to go for the football, that, you have to beat, press man coverage, that you have to be able to do some of these things that we've seen that you've had some struggles with. But this is positive. Everybody, every Charger fan out there should want to see this progression and hope that it's something that's real for Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully the other guys can ascend as well, because you're going to need more than just a Quentin Johnston jump to fully kind of improve the offense and the flaws that they had, especially in that playoff loss and in the games they had against good defenses and good teams.
Yep.
But there was also some other news on Monday, which was the Chargers reportedly worked out Nyheim Hines, a name that we haven't heard in a while, running back / return specialist, which was interesting to see, but also they ended up signing him. And I think, David, with all of the, kind of motion going on at running back right now, this is an interesting signing. Good for him, because he hasn't played in the league since 2022. We'll see what he's able to do with this opportunity.
Yeah, this is a very interesting signing here, but I think, right now, as you mentioned, there's a lot of interesting things going on with the running back room. Rocket Sanders is dealing with some kind of injury. He's missed some time. Obviously, we know Najee Harris has the superficial eye injury. We don't know when he's going to make his return. So I think with Nyheim Hines, this is a guy that brings a very particular skill set to the table. Yeah, he's missed 2 years recovering from a knee injury, but this guy has 4 seasons of 40-plus receptions as a running back. This is when he's on the field and when he's healthy, he's one of the better pass-catching running backs in the NFL. And for the Chargers, they didn't really utilize the running backs in the passing game last year, whether it was just by design or just lack of faith in the skill sets of the players that were in the room at the time. Nyheim Hines definitely brings that pedigree in spades. If he shows that he's healthy, which apparently he was able to do in the tryout, this could be an interesting wrinkle to the Chargers running back room, and all of a sudden, it's not so clear who's going to make this roster in that room.
Yeah, and I think the thing you don't want to do is overreact and think this move is because of Najee Harris potentially missing time. It doesn't mean that it's not that, or, that it can't be that, but I'd say it's not the time to kind of overreact about it right now. The crazy thing about Nyheim Hines is he didn't get hurt on the football field. He was hurt in a jet ski accident where he was struck by another jet skier, and he tore his ACL and ACL after, in the 2023 offseason, and now has missed 2 seasons after never coming off the physically unable to perform list last year when he tried to catch on, I believe, with the Browns. So the other interesting thing is the kickoff experience, because this is a guy, David, that has 89 career punt returns, which you have Darius Davis, so you're not as concerned about, but 32 kick returns, but also 4 career return touchdowns, which is a pretty big number for a guy who only played 4 seasons. And in 2022, once he was traded to the Bills, He averaged 29.2 yards per kick return, and he also had 2 touchdowns in 9 games with the Bills as a kick returner. Kick returning has never been Darius Davis's strong suit, right? So if you can be a running back at the end of the roster that could potentially bring some kick return value, that's a way that you kind of help your case and give yourself a chance, if not at the roster, but at the very least, a practice squad spot for a guy trying to make an improbable comeback. But ask Tony Jefferson if it can't be done. But we still have something big to get into because Phillip Rivers, surprisingly on Monday, retired as a Charger and had a great video tribute. So we're going to talk about our Chargers GOAT, Phillip Rivers, and what that means coming up and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, maybe even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes, and effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. I love that it's completely online. Rougiette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment directly to your door, and you can even read real customer reviews. There's a ton of them. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. So head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rougiette website for full safety information. David, now we have to get into a big one we didn't see coming, and one that could have easily led this show as well. Very fitting to come after a Rougiette ad read as well, because this is someone that has 9 kids to show his performance in that regard. But I would say that this is something that we knew had to happen, and it felt like it was just going to be kind of on Phillip Rivers' terms when it finally did, and that is Phillip Rivers retiring as a Charger on Monday. This is a guy that, it didn't end terribly. I don't think it ended, necessarily without a ton of discourse, but he went somewhere else, right? He didn't end his career as a Charger. Yeah. And it felt like the last couple of years, he was still holding on to the hope that maybe he could catch on with a playoff contender. And the crazy thing is how close it actually came to happening, David. This is Kyle Shanahan, the year that Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson, everyone got hurt in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, who went on to play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. This is what Kyle Shanahan said after that season about Phillip Rivers strapping it up in the Super Bowl if they needed him to. He was prepared to. Now, that's the stuff we talked about throughout the whole year. We would have had to see how fast that, how that was for the Super Bowl, but that was the plan for most of the year. That's crazy, man. I really, really wish we would have had a chance to see that, but it's crazy to think that we're now at the moment where it's official, right? When he hadn't totally retired yet, maybe it didn't hit exactly the same, but watching that video, watching his offensive lineman come in to surprise him there, man, it hits all the feels. My favorite player of all time, and now he's officially calling it quits and doing it as a Charger.
As he should. As I said, one of the fiercest competitors that just oozed passion, and really he was not afraid to show his emotions. His emotions were all over his sleeve. A guy that you just love to root for. You love to root for if he was on your team, and you absolutely hated his guts when you played up against him, because this is a guy that would talk trash, get in your face, but be able to back it up with his play. He retires with a myriad of different records, over 30 franchise records, also finished 5th in passing touchdowns, passing yards, and 6th, completions in the NFL.
Passing yards and passing touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. 6th. But also, one of his all-time calling cards that, just is super rare in today's game was his ability to go out there and post, show up and play. He was an NFL Iron Man, over 240 consecutive starts for Phillip Rivers, a guy who played famously after tearing his ACL and having surgery a week later, was on the football field, gutting it out for his team, for his teammates. That's something I will absolutely never forget. It was an absolute pleasure and an honor to watch him and to cover him. It is just a beautiful thing that we finally get to honor one of the best quarterbacks in franchise history.
Yeah, and for me, the best in franchise history. I understand what Dan Fouts meant to this organization and kind of the, revolution in the game
Of
that he
course.
brought, and he's a Hall of Famer for sure. For me, as someone, who's covered the Chargers the last 25 years, like, he is the greatest Charger of all time, even if he doesn't have, the highest accolades or maybe wasn't the highest at his position than guys like LaDainian Tomlinson or an Antonio Gates. But, like, this to me, it's so unquantifiable. That's like what I put on Twitter, was just like, you could never put a number on it, but like, I will always say till I die that Philip Rivers was one of the most fierce competitors, one of the best competitors that ever graced the NFL to me, and one of the best trash talkers as well. But I think this says it all.
Without ever issuing a cuss word either.
Which is so impressive. But this is, to me, kind of what made Philip Rivers Philip Rivers. This is what he said after his last game. I can say I gave it everything I had. I mean, every week, and maybe it means an interception on 4th and 18 when you're down 10, because I don't care that it's going to say 2 interceptions. I really don't. It's just like, I ain't quitting. So I think that doing it with so many guys over 14 years and go into the locker room, win or lose, and I can say, dadgummit, we fell short, or we won, but shoot, I couldn't have tried any harder. And I think that is just so prototypical Philip Rivers for a guy that had a weird career because he started off on such loaded teams, in 2006, 2007, and then things kind of faded, right? Like, it's easy to forget how many teams he carried to anything, where he just had the worst offensive line in front of him, and he's throwing to guys like Dontra Inman and Legadou Nane and Travis Benjamin and Griff Whalen and a washed-up Robert Meacham, right? Or how many times he was let down by his kicker Nate Kading in multiple playoff games where they could have won had he just made one kick, right, with multiple opportunities, or the infamous game when Marlon McCree fumbles a Tom Brady interception. Like, things could have been so much different, and it doesn't sway me at all in thinking this man is an absolute Hall of Famer and should be getting a gold jacket someday.
The Hall of Fame is not the Hall of Champions. I've said it many, many, many times. We're talking about the great players that have ever played the game of football, and you can't write the story of the NFL without Philip Rivers and what he has done and his contributions to the game, his unique throwing motion, his incredible fire and passion, his trash talking ability, his ability to make big plays, and just a true gunslinger in every aspect of the word from the quarterback position. A guy that wasn't going to run very much. He was not very mobile, but he found his ways to be able to shift, move, be able to see, and also he made up for it with the intelligence, with really understanding what the defenses were trying to do to him, and he wasn't afraid to let them know that he knew exactly what they were trying to do, and he would beat them anyway. Philip Rivers was so much fun to watch. I am forever indebted to him to be able to watch his legendary career. Philip Rivers is a Charger for life and a guy I will always root for.
Yeah, man, and it's weird because he's like one of the first guys where you really have a chance to kind of take in his whole career and really kind of digest it, throughout and be like, man, I got to see that whole thing. Like, from beginning to end, when he was, sitting on the bench behind Drew Brees, to when he finally got his chance and was great when he got it, right? And to even see him, in those games where week after week he was outgunned and outmanned and was still going to lay it all on the line to give his team a chance, right? But also, let's not forget about the actual real accomplishments that he's actually had, like you talked about, not just every franchise passing record, but also up there in the annals of the greatest of all time in the NFL history, period, right?
Yeah.
4,000-yard passer in 12 of his last 13 seasons, third most 4,000-yard passing seasons behind only Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. The longevity matters. Him being great for so long, even if he wasn't top 3 or top 2, that matters. And I think that it will eventually get him in, even without the postseason accolades, which we all know and have argued on Justin Herbert's behalf as well. There's so much more to it than just the quarterback, and it feels like he was let down more than most. And outside of Dan Marino, is the best player to never win a Super Bowl in NFL history, in my opinion. But no off-field allegations, no holdouts, no forcing his way onto a team and having his dad call a team and be like, I don't want to play in San Diego. None of that. Phil over Eli every single day of the week. He was a better quarterback. He was
And
a
the
better
record
competitor.
showed it too.
And the record showed he never beat Phillip Rivers. So it's just, he'll always mean more to us. And I understand, we have a lot of old Chargers fans on this, and you're allowed to say Dan Fouts is the greatest and all of those things.
Of course.
And I'm not going to even argue with you. To me, Phillip Rivers is the greatest ever in Chargers history, and just what he meant to this team, putting this team on his back and consistently being there over and over again, torn ACL or not. Phillip Rivers is the man. I actually wore this shirt to training camp to see Phillip Rivers before we ever even started a podcast. So this is an honor of Phil, one of the greatest to ever do it. Shout out to Phil. We love you, man.
We love you.
Congrats on your retirement and a Hall of Fame career, in my opinion. But now it's about the 2025 Chargers, and the Chargers are putting the pads on fittingly in San Diego tomorrow at USD. And we're going to talk about, or today, as you guys are hearing this, we're going to talk about the players we're most excited to see because it's more important for some than others. And it's really, really important for Junior Colson. So we're going to get into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. This is an ad by BetterHelp. Workplace stress is at an all-time high. 61% of the global workforce is reporting higher than normal stress levels. This summer is the perfect time to take small steps to focus on your wellness and manage the challenges that come with your workday. Of course, most of us can't just quit our jobs or take endless vacations, but we can start small. Whether it's getting outside for a few minutes, adding movement into your day, or talking to someone who can help you navigate life's challenges, that's where BetterHelp comes in. And where BetterHelp always really separated itself from me is the ability to help you build the tools and gain the tools so that you can take them in your own everyday life. And you don't actually need to be in there to have BetterHelp be working for you. And for me, especially with a baby, it's basically the only thing I can do because it's the most flexible option for me. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action anyways. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app always keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. But right now, it's all about baseball season, and the Padres are hot. And when the Padres get hot, Daddy's going to go with the Padres. Dad's going to go with the dads, right? And right now, they're playing the Marlins tonight. You can get them pretty much even money, -108 and -108. I'm going with the Padres tonight with Stephen Kolek on the mound. And there's so many more, including who is going to hit a home run in that game potentially. But if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, tomorrow is basically a training camp holiday.
Christmas morning.
The easy days are over. The finesse players have had their time. The physicality reigns supreme on Tuesday down in San Diego at USD, where former Toreros head coach Jim Harbaugh is leading the Chargers in their first physical padded practice of training camp, fittingly in front of the U.S. Armed Service members and veterans. Love to see it. Great idea by this team. And those guys should be able, and women should be able to see the first padded practice. But thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen. Also, make sure you guys are checking out the NFL Top 100. It is here now, voted on by the NFL, host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Justin Herbert coming in at 39. Is that too low? Quarterback 6. Make sure you check it out on Locked On Sports today on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. David, let's get into this. The players we're most excited to see put the pads on. We've talked about several players in the sense that, hey, you can't even evaluate this position until they get the pads on. For a lot of positions, today is when training camp starts, David. Who are you most excited to see when the pads get strapped up?
Yeah, I think for me, this is an easy one. It's a player that really is going to have a lot of say on how the outlook of this Chargers offense looks this season. And that, of course, is the center/guard, Zion Johnson. Now it's time to show what you really look like in the middle of the offensive line with the shells on, with the pads on. And now it's, okay, can you identify these stunts and twists? Can you call out the protections? Can you really play a position you've never played before at any level and show the competency to win the starting job away from somebody who's a seasoned center in this league with Bradley Bozeman. So this is where the real competition starts. And obviously the Chargers offensive line is incredibly important. If they're going to have any kind of difference this year with the same pieces, it requires Zion Johnson to be able to play well at center.
Yeah, and like honestly, the sooner you find out, the better. Like if this is a failed experiment, if it's just not clicking, get the guys back to the positions they're going to play and try to rep that as many times as you possibly can, so that chemistry between Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson, the prohibitive favorites to win both of those positions, either at one spot or the other, so they can keep, continuing to build whatever chemistry they have there. But yeah, I mean, it might be the most impactful battle that is on this roster as far as how much the Chargers can improve the running game, how much the Chargers can improve their offensive line. A lot of that could come down to if this Zion Johnson at center project actually works. On the defensive side, I'd say it's Junior Colson, probably the biggest one I'm excited to see as far as the impact that it could have on this defense this year, if it is going to be him starting in the middle. Daniel Popper and his Hops on Pop podcast, also in The Athletic, put that it's Denzel Perriman's job to lose right now. Not Junior Colson's job to lose. It's Junior Colson's job to go and try and take, but he's not going to get it handed to him, which he absolutely shouldn't, right? But what I would say is, with linebackers, again, certain positions, you don't really get to see them until the pads start popping. This is a huge, huge offseason for Junior Colson, and he seemed a little irritated at his press conference. It seemed like, hopefully that's a sign that he has a chip on his shoulder and he can't wait to, silence the doubters. But it'll be interesting where that kind of temperament takes him, because it's still all in front of him. He's just going to have to go prove he can do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great call out for Junior Colson. Obviously, if he's able to figure it out, and we've seen with Chargers linebackers in the recent past that some of these guys don't blossom right away. It takes a few seasons for one reason or another for them to figure it out, to be able to, capture the speed of the game at the NFL level. And hopefully Junior Colson does figure it out, because if it is Junior Colson and Deion Henley out there, two of the, youngest, most athletic linebackers in the NFL, they really have the potential to be a great tandem in this league. And I think another guy, sticking on the defensive side for me, is the rookie Jamari Caldwell, the defensive lineman, the defensive tackle. I want to see what he looks like with the pads on. I think this is a guy that can ascend, just like Quentin Johnston's ascending. I love the makeup, his run stopping ability, the ability to take on double teams, and just the really nimbleness of his feet. This guy has quick feet for a man his size, a little bit unnaturally quick, which is going to be really cool to watch. I want to see what he's capable of doing with the pads on.
Yeah, I mean, defensive line, another one of those positions where you're just not going to know anything until they put the pads on. And I think with Caldwell specifically, it's interesting because Daniel Popper also reported that when they had the defensive line out there for run fits on Monday, it was him with the third string, defensive line that he's working with. So he's going to have to make up some ground, and he's going to have to show that he has what it takes to get in that rotation and get meaningful snaps, because guess what? Even though Justin Eboigbe was a 4th-round pick, he was only picked 19 overall spots later than what Jamari Caldwell was picked, right? What did Justin Eboigbe learn? If you're not there, you're not playing, and you'll get 26 snaps in your rookie season. These guys were picked around the same time in the draft, so it will, and I don't expect that to happen with Jamari Caldwell at all. But what I do think is, hey, he has to go out there and prove it. We've seen Mike Elston work wonders before with the vets. Can he do it with the rookie? Because he's going to have to make up some serious ground, and I think he absolutely has the capability to do that, and I'm excited for him to show it. But one thing that's a little different as far as rookies go is what you will be doing in pads, and that's why I have to throw Kyle Kennard into the mix here too, because Kyle Kennard's going to get his first chance to go one-on-one with guys like Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Now, hopefully Rashawn Slater gets back, because he still was not back at Monday's practice, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. The first padded practice will tell us a lot. But I'll still never forget when I saw Rashawn Slater versus Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack for the first time, right? And you just knew. Like, it was a light bulb moment. You're like, this dude is it. This dude can play, and we know it from just that, right? And you could tell already. Now we get a chance to see Kyle Kennard go out and have those wow moments, and he has the juice to go do it. So now we get to see him for the first time in meaningful practice with pads on, and I'm really, really excited to see what Kyle Kennard can do as kind of an X factor in this pass rush and in this edge room really excited to see that. Anyone else you want to touch on for tomorrow's practice?
Yeah, the last guy I'll throw out there is also another guy who, has really played very well in the offseason, and we'll see if that translates with the pads on. That's Oronde Gadsden the second, of course, the tight end. Guy's been making lots of plays, with the shorts on. Let's see if that translates with the pads, because we all know when he is on the field, he's going to be a pass-catching threat. But how well he blocks will determine how often he's able to get on the football field to be able to make those plays.
Yeah, it's a great call. A guy I knew we'd both have on our list here, because it's not solely dependent on how he does in training camp, but it's hugely dependent on how he does in training camp as far as what his role is going to be and how much they can get him on the field. I've said it before, is already the most talented receiving option on tight end you have on this roster, or at tight end you have on this roster. Then again, we just got done with the part of the offseason where he was always going to have the best opportunity to have those wow moments, like you did when we talked on yesterday's show, right? Having the two explosive plays. Today it's QJ. Yesterday it was Oronde Gadsden II. Exciting to see weapons showing up and showing out. But with Oronde Gadsden, he just has to show something, right? He doesn't have to show that he's Will Dissly in the run blocking game. He doesn't. And they've talked about that. Andy Bischoff said it himself. We're not going to have him down blocking 300-pound defensive ends, and we'd be dumb to do that.
Yeah.
He just has to show that he can be passable, that he can be usable as a blocker. There's a ton of great receiving tight ends. You go look at the top 10 receiving tight ends, you're going to find a lot of bad blockers in there. It doesn't mean you can't get on the field. For this offense, Greg Roman needs his tight ends to be able to block. I think he'll have enough. He looks noticeably bigger than when he was coming out of college already. That Ben Herbert offseason program is hitting. And it's so exciting because, man, if he does it then, when everyone, not expects him to do it, but when he has no pads on, nobody's getting physical with him, and then he can do it in training camp where not only you're going to have to block guys, but also you're going to have to show that you can receive the ball over the middle with guys actually coming at you and trying to knock the ball loose. It's easy to do with no pads, much harder to do when you have guys like Denzel Perryman waiting to give you a pop if you're not expecting him in the middle of the field. So he had to be on this list, and there's a ton of guys we won't get to, but those guys, it feels like, could have the biggest impact on what this Chargers, team is as a whole, how good this offense can be as a whole with Oronde Gadsden and Zion Johnson, and if this Chargers defense can repeat, if Junior Colson can take the lead, if you can get the contributions from the rookies, now all of a sudden you're looking at a defense that feels like it could be a top 10 once again. But you know where to go to get the latest of these padded practices, and that is with us tomorrow as the only daily Chargers podcast out there. We'll be giving you the recap of what happens in the first day with pads on, and if Rashawn Slater even shows up in San Diego. But until then, guys, to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We will be getting some fan shows in. It's been crazy with 6 straight training camp practice days going on, but we're going to mix in some buy or sells and some fan mail later on in the week for you guys. So make sure you hit us up at all those places to get your questions or buy or sells on the show, or call into 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers question. But the pads are coming on tomorrow. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow to talk about it. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.